Have you ever written a song and thought, this is exactly like every other song I've ever written, there's nothing new here? Or have you ever written a song and thought, there's nothing innovative here at all, it's not even my own voice, it's a cheap ripoff of all of my better influences? Have you ever sat down to write a song and just drawn a complete blank? Nothing comes to mind, and no matter how hard you try to coax out your creativity, nothing that you do seems to work. What's up, guys? My name is Connor, and I want to tell you that as creatives and as songwriters, we have all been there. Writer's block is a tale as old as time. In my songwriting career, I can think of countless times where I've just felt stumped, where I've almost given up on the craft entirely because I've been so demoralized by my inability to come up with anything novel or engaging. The good news is, by going through that time and time again, I've developed a bunch of strategies to help me break free from that and tap into creativity where I didn't even know it existed. So today we're going to talk about 5 strategies you can use to shake up your creative process to achieve results far more different and far above what you thought you were capable of. So let's get into it. All right, tip number 1 is set constraints on the writing process. If you have watched any of my songwriting challenge videos, you'll know that this is exactly what I am doing. When you sit down in front of a completely blank page, it can be overwhelming. It can be paralyzing. There can be so many options, choices, possibilities that it just stuns you into silence. But by picking a few constraints and limiting the options that you have available to you to write a song, it forces your brain to try to solve those problems in different ways. So the goal is to move from the choice paralysis zone into the creative problem solving zone. Here's a few examples of what you can do. You can limit the chords you use. You can pick select chords and decide that you have to use only those chords in a specific order. Maybe you decide that you're going to put a bunch of song topics in a hat and draw something out of the hat and use that as the basis for your song. Maybe you're going to have a randomizer pick a bunch of notes that you have to use for your melody line. It could spit something back like A, B, C, E, D, and then you have to build that motif into your vocal melody. There's a ton of different ways to do this. Sometimes what I'll even do is I'll sit down and I'll brainstorm just limits I can put on my own creative process, just ways that I can inhibit myself, prevent myself from just going along the same pathway that I always travel, and then I can pick from that list and find something that'll force me to be more creative than I otherwise would have been. Tip number 2 is change your setting. Nobody truly knows how creativity works, but on some level it seems to be a reflection of your environment. If you're a songwriter, you take in these influences, churn them around subconsciously, and spit them back out in a packaged song form. The way that I think about it sometimes is I'm trying to capture a slice of an emotion I'm feeling or an experience that I'm having in song form to immortalize that moment in time. And what I found is if I just sit in the same place and write at the same time of day and go through the process the exact same way every single time, I get very similar results. So if you normally write a song at your desk, maybe go into your kitchen and write a song. Maybe drag a guitar or a ukulele out to a park, lay down a blanket, and write something outside. If you're a nighttime writer, maybe get up early and try writing a song early in the morning. If you catch yourself in a heightened emotional state, maybe you've just gone through a breakup, maybe you got a bad report at work, maybe you just won the lottery. In a moment of silence that follows that, try sitting down and using that as fuel for your songwriting. There are tons of different ways to change the time, the location, the state of mind that you're in to achieve a much broader variety of mental states that you can use to fuel your songwriting in very new and interesting ways. Tip number 3 is change your lyric writing method. So this is kind of similar to changing the time of day or the place or the emotional state that you're in when you write. So when I was first learning how to write songs, I had just recently been gifted a MacBook by my parents. I was probably 13 years old and I'd experimented and I'd written a couple songs before, but this is when I really first started to get into it heavily. And the MacBook was such a powerful tool, I just used it for everything. When I had lyric ideas, every single time I would open up the Notes app and just type what came to mind. To this day, probably, I hate to say it, 85–90% of the songs I've ever written have just been me sitting in front of my computer typing up the lyrics. I would not say though that it's been 85–90% of my favorite songs that I've written. Those songs have come about other ways. Recently, I've been leaning into handwriting my lyrics more. I got a notebook specifically for lyrics, I got a bunch of fun, colorful pens, and I'll sit down and I'll actually write out the lyrics. Because handwriting is slower, it forces me to think a little more carefully about what I write. Because pen is more permanent, I have to commit to my decisions. I can't just go back and change them later. So I have to be more deliberate about the lyrical decisions I make. If I were to use pencil instead, it would again be a different way of approaching the same process. Yes, I would still be handwriting my lyrics, which is slower and I'd have to think more carefully, but I would know in the back of my mind that I could always just flip that pencil around, use that eraser, and change things as I need to. Subconsciously, that will affect the kind of song that I write. If I know that I can change it more easily, I'll be more lackadaisical with the way that I approach it, and my editing process will be a little heavier. If I really want to shake things up, what I'll do is I'll record a guitar or a piano instrumental console into my computer and play it on loop and just kind of sing gibberish melody lines over the top of it until words start to take shape. I'll do that over and over and over again until the lyrics and the idea behind the song make themselves manifest to me. None of these ideas are just point blank the best option, but each method for writing lyrics has its own benefits and drawbacks. And by using as many different tactics as possible, you get to push your creativity in different directions, force yourself to think about your lyrical content differently, and you'll get different and hopefully more interesting results. Tip number 4 is simplify, simplify, simplify. This could just be me, but oftentimes when I feel overwhelmed by a song I'm working on, it's because I'm trying to do too much with it. I used to think that it was cheating to reuse the same pre-chorus or to repeat words or phrases during a chorus. In my last tips video, I referenced the song Stay With Me by Sam Smith, and this is the perfect example. The majority of the chorus is just the words stay with me repeated again and again. But that repetition reinforces the theme of the song, and it continues to familiarize the listener with that motif. And quite frankly, human beings like familiarity. We like things that we know. So instead of thinking about it as being cheating or taking shortcuts to repeat things or to simplify things, we can think about it as making it more digestible, more recognizable. It gives our songs a broader appeal, and it can make the message hit way harder. So if your song has 14 verses and you're tweaking the lyrics every single chorus, and you've got 2 bridges and a 3-minute instrumental outro, maybe you're a member of a progressive metal band, or maybe you're just trying to do too much with your song. A songwriting mentor of mine once told me to add the minimum possible complexity to each song, but still get the point across. If my song feels like it's missing something at a certain point and I need to add more, I should do the absolute bare minimum to achieve that. He told me that anything more than that bare minimum was just making the song less streamlined and less effective. I'm not sure I completely buy that philosophy. At my core, I do love complexity, but there's a lot to be said for that. And for somebody like me who gravitates to more complicated, longer songwriting forms, leaning into simplicity can be an absolute game changer for me. So maybe it can for you too. All right, tip number 5 is maybe the most fun one of all. It's very straightforward, it's very simple, and it's write with a friend. I used to really resist collaboration because it was more work. It shook me out of my own process and my own workflow. And I wasn't used to it. I didn't really know how to do it. I'd written so many songs just on my own, in my room, alone, that's what I knew how to do. That's what made sense to me. But when I started doing music more professionally, I found that I had to start collaborating with people more. I started working on really interesting projects that had a lot of hands in the pot. And so by necessity, I was forced to exercise my collaboration muscles. And I'm so glad that I was pushed in that direction. Co-writing is a beautiful thing. If songwriting is a form of bearing your soul to the world, then writing a song with somebody else is like fusing your souls together. And the song that results is a reflection of your mutual ideas, energies, personalities, moods, states of mind. And it's the coolest thing in the world that you can get together with other creative people, put your heads together, and generate something that doesn't solely belong to you or solely belong to them, but belongs to both of you. Not only that, if you each contribute a relatively equal part of the songwriting, then it's almost a guarantee that the song that emerges will not be something that you could have written by yourself. It will not be something that the other person could have written by themselves. It will only be something that could have been created by both of you working in tandem to make that creative vision happen. And so by definition, it's almost guaranteed to be different than anything you write on your own. So if you're in a slump, if you're just writing by yourself and you feel stuck and you're not going anywhere and you feel like everything is stale and you've run out of ideas, go write with somebody else. Allow them to pour more water into your well and the well will no longer be dry. So there you go. If you're feeling stuck, I feel ya. It happens. It's a natural part of the process. It's a natural part of being a creative. It's a natural part of being a songwriter. You are not a failure. You are not a terrible writer, and you will return to prime creative form. Hopefully these tips help you get there. If they do, or if you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments what your experience is with writer's block. I'd love to hear about it, what happened and how you overcame it. And with that, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video.